it talks about the milestones in a child's development and what you can expect, what you need to be looking for, and if it's not there, what you can go talk to your doctor about it. So it's a lot of information that's needed because, when you have a child, there's all sorts of handbooks, there's all sorts of things you can read, but until you've actually had a child, I don't have any children. So this is why this has helped me out to understand better people who do have children, what they're going through, that there is no playbook to say, okay, do all this and you'll be successful.
Legacy Foundation is Lake County's community foundation. For over 30 years, we've partnered with donors and nonprofits, focusing on youth development, the arts, the environment, health, literacy, and other causes that matter to you. We're committed to Lake County forever. First Things First Porter County is dedicated to supporting families, healthy beginnings, and quality early learning, ensuring every Porter County baby is born prepared for a strong start in life. Learn more at firstthingspc.org.
I have a very strong connection to other students. Everyone makes an effort to help each other. I'll remember the feeling of being here, the feeling that I was a part of a family.
Additional support for Building Blocks is provided generously by Tom Sorlis and Sue Eleuterio, as well as Porter County Community Foundation, serving Porter County since 1996.
Building Blocks, the podcast, is a co-production of Lakeshore Public Media and First Things First Porter County. For more information on Building Blocks, including this podcast, as well as the television show, visit lakeshorepublicmedia.org/buildingblocks.
Hi, today I'm with Chuck Roberts, President and CEO of Lakeshore Public Media. We're going to talk about the beginnings of the Building Blocks project and the importance of public media and telling these kinds of local stories. Chuck, welcome to Building Blocks.
Thank you for having me, Mary Jane. Good to be here.
So this is a project that you came to Northwest Indiana, and you may have already been thinking about something like this. Tell us how Building Blocks was born here at Lakeshore Public Media.
Well, a little over 2 years ago, I spent a lot of time at different events, different chamber meetings, different meetings of movers and shakers in the region, and I was trying to find the common thread. How does our organization fit in? And at many of these events, the very last thing they talked about was early childhood development. And I thought, wow, this touches on so many different aspects of our communities. It's something that's important. And then Carl Keurig, our VP of Development, came to me with this 3-ring binder full of awesome information and said, Chuck, I've done this thing. And I'm like, okay, Carl, what thing? It's the Strosacker Early Learning Fellowship, or SELF, and it has to do with early childhood development. And I think you should be in it, and I think we should. And I said, let's do it. He goes, wait, I have this information. I said, no, let's do it. What he didn't know was earlier in my career in West Virginia, when I was the director of video production there, they approached my CEO, and the senator from the state Senate said, I want you to make a documentary that solves poverty.
It's a tall order.
Yes, and he came to me and said, Chuck, get the guys out shooting. We're going to make this documentary that solves poverty. And I went, uh-huh. And I went to the video production folks and said, this is what we're going to do. And they went, I said, let's just start shooting. Let's start shooting and see what we can get. And they shot economists, educators, social workers, anyone that worked in the world or the realm of taking care of our children. And about a year later, I went to the awesome documentarian John Nakashima, sat with him in the edit bay, and he said, Chuck, I really don't have anything cohesive. I don't have anything that makes sense. And I looked on his screen, and there was this small folder icon that had a child's face on it. And I said, what's that? He said, it's this early childhood thing. And I said, well, let me see it. And he pushed play on it, and they started talking about the first 1,000 days, about your brain development. And I said, that's it. That's the only thing that touches on everything else that happens in your life, is early childhood development. So that's what we focused on. And John Nakashima developed this documentary called The First 1,000 Days. So when I came here and I joined the SELF group and learned about all the different parts of the community that come together for this, I thought, that's what we have to do. We have to do maybe a elongated version of what we did in West Virginia, talking about the brain science, what early relational health is, all the aspects that affects your life. The fact that, when Dr. Jeffrey Nagel in the group talked about how your brain and synapses form more in those first 3 years than it will the entirety of the rest of your life. The light bulb went off in my head and said, that's pretty important. Not just for me, not just for our organization, but everybody. No matter what socioeconomic situation you're in, those first 3 years of your life are the most important part of your development. And without those, you're regressing. You're not going to develop as well as you could. You're not going to be as successful as you could be. There are other factors that factor in, of course, but those first 3 years, the nurturing that happens, it's the most important thing. And I thought it's the most important thing we can talk about at Lakeshore Public Media is how, no matter what's going on in our communities, it can be helped by these resources at a child's earliest time in life.
It's amazing. As our team at the Strosacker Early Learning Fellowship puts together this series, and we bring together our community leaders and really try to equip them with knowledge and skills and information so they can advocate, we give you one assignment, and that is to use the resources that you have to do this information. And I think you and Carl have far exceeded that assignment.
It was interesting when the first day I showed up, I'm like it's the first day of school, and I walk in and I see all these different people at the tables, and I don't see anyone exactly like me or does what I do. So I think, well, how do I fit in? And then when we start introducing ourselves, and it hits me, Mary Jane has brought together people from all walks of life in our communities, all different networking levels, to be able to spread the word about early childhood development. And that's why it's such an important group that comes together, because it helps disseminate the words and the learnings. It's almost like a Bible for early childhood development about, what's needed. And that brain science is so key. When he showed us those slides, Dr. Nagel did, of, your synapses at birth, it's a very open, and then your synapses at 3, and it's completely filled. You're like, well, that makes sense. Your brain is developing. And without the right inputs, it won't develop as quickly or as well. But seeing all those different people that they developed the information, and they saw what it meant to them, and who they could take it back to. When I see representatives from our national and state senators at the table, I'm like, oh, okay, that has to do with legislation. That has to do with developing what's needed to get the money to where it needs to be in our communities.
And spreading that word. So we often think of, public media, Lakeshore Public Media, you do programming. And when we think of early childhood and PBS or Lakeshore Public Media, we think of the programming for children. How is Building Blocks, or how have you designed Building Blocks to be different than, let's say, some of those other, like PBS for Kids?
Well, there are other programs. There's Ready to Learn and all the different kids programming on public media, but there wasn't anything really for the parents. There wasn't anything for the families to know what role they play in this child's life. So we wanted to focus mainly on that. And I said the mother. Let's focus on the mother, because that's the person that's having the baby. And of course, the people that work with me said, well, they're not the only ones involved. There's the caregivers, there's the family, there's the fathers. There's everyone that needs to be involved. So that's what the series really touches on, is all the different people in the community that work to develop these children. The Talking is Teaching has to do with not only the family, but the people that are babysitting the child, the groups that come together to give that nourishment, and the support that's needed. So it goes through those steps of, here's the brain science, here's the resources in the community, here's the levels and the I'm trying to think. Here's the.
Are you thinking about the stages of development?
Yes. Here's the
the milestones.
Yes, thank you. It talks about the milestones in a child's development and what you can expect, what you need to be looking for, and if it's not there, what you can go talk to your doctor about it. So it's a lot of information that's needed, because, when you have a child, there's all sorts of handbooks, there's all sorts of things you can read, but until you've actually had a child. I don't have any children. So this is why this has helped me out to understand better people who do have children, what they're going through, that there is no playbook to say, okay, do all this and you'll be successful.
There is no playbook.
Isn't.
It's a really challenging. It can be really challenging. It's such a paradox. It's such a joyful time in life. You have a new member of your family and everybody's very excited. But at the same time, it can be very isolating. It can be very scary. And you really are starting from scratch because every single child is so different.
Yes, and the stress that's got to be involved with that. Am I doing the right thing?
Absolutely.
That question I hear a lot. Is this right? Is that right? Am I doing? I hear it from my sister-in-law and her niece, my niece. Did we do the right thing? Well, she's in high school and she's talking about pre-med stuff. And I was like, I was just getting through gym class, when I was that age. So yeah, the inputs have changed. The way children learn has changed dramatically. And that's another thing Dr. Nagel talked about. Our school system is pretty much the same as it was when Horace Mann developed it in
About the 1850s.
1850s. That's think about all the other developments that have happened. Think about these widescreen TVs, HD cameras, and we still have the same school system we had since the 1850s. I lived in Germany for a while, and the children there, we went to an American school, Department of Defense school, and we had the same system, kindergarten to 12th grade. The students there, the German students, they started school earlier in life, and when we graduated, they still had 2 more years of high school. So there's different systems. And of course, the word kindergarten is German.
It is.
So there's some school teaching there. But there's different ways of doing things. And once we realize about early relational health, early childhood development, how that breeds success throughout the rest of a child's school system life, why wouldn't you want to invest in that?
I think the school system, this model of schooling that we have in our country right now begins typically at age 5. And now we know how much more happens in those first 3-5 years.
Yes. And there were many school superintendents that were involved with us during the Strosacker Early Learning Fellowship that said, we don't do this, but we have resources and we want to help because we know how much more successful we'll be as teachers if the child has had this development, this nurturing from birth to 3. So it's preschool. Is it not? It's preschool. It just starts earlier than when you're 4.
And it looks very different, I think, than what school is. School for a 1-year-old, school for a 3-year-old doesn't look like school for an 8-year-old or even a 5-year-old. It's really paying attention to what those different children need at those different milestones.
And the different resources from childcare to preschool. Why are those things 2 different things, although we're dealing with the same age range of children? It has to do with the resources and what they're being taught in that time period. They're not just being babysat.
No.
They're being given stimulus to help them grow and learn.
So building blocks, there's eventually there'll be 6 episodes of this first season, and we've had several different podcast episodes. What are you hearing? What's been the impact or what's been the response in the community to building blocks?
The response has been great from different community leaders, from different people around our communities that are doing this work, that someone's actually putting faces to the conversation, that's putting content out there that can help people understand what it means. It's not just hugging your child. It's a bit more than that. It's reading to them. It's talking to them in complete sentences, not goo-goo gaga type top. It's conversation. It's understanding all the resources that are already in our communities. That's really, to me, the biggest part of building blocks is shine a light on the work that people are already doing in this field. It's not something that has to be completely, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's already happening. You just have to explain to people what the resources are that are needed and what are there. There's resources from the legislature and funding to help with daycare. But a lot of people don't know about it, so it goes unspent. There are cuts happening all over the place for what we're doing in this field, but it doesn't change the importance of it. I just got this information, Mary Jane, this survey from the Indiana Youth Institute, that the overall well-being of our children in Indiana ranks 25th in the nation. That's not the worst, but there's 25 better. Young children ages 3 and 4 not in school. Current data, 60% of Indiana's children at that age are not getting any sort of educational input. Fourth graders not proficient in reading, 66% of our children. That's a lot more than half. Eighth graders not proficient in math, 69%. And this all, I'm not saying that early childhood development will solve all these issues, but it sure does give you a head start. It sure does give you a boost to being able to raise children understanding what education is about and why it's important. These numbers is why it's important.
And you can't start helping the fourth graders learn how to read in third grade.
No, it happens a lot before then. They need a lot more resources. I remember in going through school, there were different levels. There were the advanced classes, the regular classes, and the remedial classes. And you knew you didn't want to be in that group, not only because of it was hard work, but the stigma that was on you when you had to learn that way. So early childhood development helps you avoid that issue. It helps you being held back, keeps you from being held back. There were some, I had the opportunities for some advanced classes, but I didn't take all of them because I had a lot of friends. But I was able to do that. Department of Defense schools had tons of resources when we were in Germany.
Yes.
And so we were really well taken care of and given tons of opportunities for different classes. That's the real thing about early childhood development is opportunities.
Yes.
What we're talking about is bringing opportunities to the table for our children to learn and have broader horizons. To expand what they know quicker in life. That's really what it is. And when you look at all the technological issues and all the competitiveness and the world market, China's better at this, Japan's better at that, Germany has a better healthcare system. Well, they're not spending as much on defense as we are. But, children having that opportunity and having more information, a better learning experience brings all that up.
That's so true. So today I'm talking with Chuck Roberts here at Lakeshore Public Media. Chuck and his colleagues here have really just done something so innovative and brought the story about the first 1,000 days to our community. Chuck, we've talked a lot about these opportunities, and it really shouldn't matter the zip code you live in Northwest Indiana. And so how are you using this platform through Lakeshore Public Media to reach families of all different addresses across the community?
Well, we're making it free over the air right now, as long as we're still on the air. But it's you mentioned the different communities. It was interesting to talk with Brianna Hooker from
she's in Rensselaer.
Yes, about her area. I was talking with her about the tri-system, where there's state, employer, and personal investment in daycare. And she said, well, that won't work in our area because we don't have big businesses. And it made me think, there is no one size fits all. So that also goes to what you're talking about is how we reach the different communities, how we reach people. You talked about the staff. They've done yeoman's great work at shooting, at being available, at editing this stuff. So it's understandable. Tony Santucci, our VP of production, when I came to him and talked to him about this, he was pretty much pale and the blood left his face because he's so scared and nervous about something that he'd never done before. And I said, it'll be okay. Mary Jane has all the information and will steward us through this and of what people need to know, what the important parts are and how we share that. So putting it in words that anyone can understand, putting it in terms that anyone can understand, using video to show real people in similar situations in different parts of our communities is the most important part. And then making it available not only on TV, but also on radio, online, on our app, so that as many people as possible can use this. And it's, you talked about county lines really don't matter with this. State lines don't matter. This is a national issue. We're going to stay national. I can't help international just yet, but you can see this internationally. And there's people working in this same field saying, what's the next step for our children? How do we get them to where they need to be? These numbers, they're just a few general numbers that aren't the greatest. And when I talk to educators, one of the things that set us back was the pandemic. Not having that personal one-on-one interaction really hurt our children's growth. So back in the classrooms, they're having to restart. Had everyone's parents knew that birth to 3 is where I need to be doing this homeschooling that was happening during the pandemic, maybe it would have helped with that situation. And we know it's going to help going forward.
And I think when we talk about that education, it really is for our youngest learners. It's about the relationship, the experiences and the relationships. Dr. Nagel has mentioned that several times, that as the relationship goes, so goes that child and their trajectory for life.
Yes, the brain building game we did in the self group, I pushed back from the table and started tearing up, because basically it's a game where you've got dice, you roll them, and whatever a good number gets you good experiences, a bad number gets you bad experiences. When you think about it, it's just that simple for a child. They have nothing to do with their circumstances at birth. So all the external inputs are what causes success or failure. So when we got these cards, there was these red cards
with toxic stress,
bad things on them, having to move houses multiple times, having parents that weren't there, having alcoholism or some other issue in the home. I kept seeing real children's faces that are going through issues that are none of their own causing. And I was crying. I was like, oh my gosh, that's why this is important, because it's just that simple, that these children need support, they need love, they need care, they need positive influences on them to be able to be successful, to be able to not be in jail when they're older,
That's true.
to not be on government assistance because they've made their own way. This doesn't make all those things go away. There are other issues, there's other factors in life that cause you to be where you are. Mental illness is a huge one, and this early childhood development can actually help identify any mental illnesses.
And starting early, right?
Yes.
And you mentioned at the top of this episode that your building blocks is for parents, but I would also say it's perhaps for the community.
Yes.
We've put this burden on parents to do all of these things, and sometimes, more than sometimes, they need help. They need support. They need a whole village.
Yes. And they need the village to speak up and talk about how important it is, because we're seeing at the state level and the federal level, support for these type of services are being cut. So we know that certain folks running our governments don't believe in it, don't feel how important it is. I don't know what they feel is important because I don't see what they are supporting, but I know that cuts are happening to Ready to Learn through CPB. It's very similar.
CPB is what?
Corporation for Public Broadcasting had this funding to help children that are in not great states get the support, the mentoring they need to help them in school. That was cut. That's gone. It's been decades of help and assistance for children of all race, genders, colors, everything that need that, all socioeconomic groups. So it's important to let legislators, to let politicians, let our leaders know how important your child's future is, how important it is to. I think most people would much rather support a child in their upgrowth than an adult person going through issues and problems, because that's one person. This child can affect much more people's lives in the future. So that's the important thing is. It's probably even, I don't know the economics of it, but I would assume it's cheaper to help a child than it is an adult.
Absolutely. And we know that starting early, whether that's through early intervention and like you mentioned, the developmental milestones, recognizing when there may be a challenge for a child, whether that's been diagnosed or a family member notices, there may be some delay in language or physical. I know my youngest, she didn't walk till she was 17 months old. That's not out of the complete range, but it was a moment where I thought we probably might want to call in some experts here. And we went through the first steps process and had an assessment and received home visiting with a physical therapist. And to know that our community has those kinds of things available was such a relief as a parent. It wasn't on us to just try to figure that out on our own.
Yeah, you mentioned relief. What relief would it be to know that your child is getting what it needs, is going to need to develop its brain to be successful? Talk about a huge relief. I know I've done what I need to do. I know that this child has the support it needs.
Yeah.
And this program, Building Blocks, helps show that path. There was another group we talked about in West Virginia about stepping stones. From kindergarten to 12th grade, there's these things that you have to do to graduate. It's this path. Mm-hmm. Well, after you graduate, there's no clear path. You're on your own. You have to figure it out. It's that way up until you're in the school system as well. There's no path from birth to 3 to 5 about these are the steps you have to take to get this person to be valedictorian. Wouldn't that be crazy? One person per school. But it's not quite that level, but to be successful, to be happy, I think about that more and more is when I'm trying to be successful, when we're trying to do things, be happy, to have a quality of life where you can exhale and say, it's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. We're going to make it. No matter which red, blue, whatever politician you're following, if you've done the steps to learn to grow, you can find happiness.
And that's what we all want for all of our children, our neighbors, our family members, but that's really what we want. Chuck, I have to say that one of the most important things about Building Blocks is the partnerships that you've developed, and specifically with our organization, First Things First Porter County.
Yes.
What has that meant to you, to your staff here? I know we've often said we couldn't do First Things First without Lakeshore Public Media.
And that goes back the other way. I don't know early childhood development. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but of course you and your staff do. And having that content with someone who knows what they're doing, who doesn't have an agenda other than to help kids is very important. Mm-hmm. Other people seeing the partnership and how we grow helps us make partnerships with them. Other foundations in our communities that are trying to spread the word about what they're doing, the good services that are there, they see what's going on between First Things First Porter County and Lakeshore Public Media and say, okay, that's something, those are movers and shakers, and I want to do what they're doing. You'd told me before how you'd taken Building Blocks to another state mm-hmm. at a conference and showed them, and people came running to you saying, how do I get my public media channel to do that for me?
This is true.
I said, well, get to know me.
Yes. Well, and this was a group of early educators
yes.
and people advocating for children. And so like me, they understand that and the importance of spreading that message. But what we all don't have in the field, many of us, is the work that you all do, which is the storytelling and the technical pieces and this disseminating of information.
Well, that, and I talked to other GMs around the nation about what we're doing with Building Blocks, because they have education departments. We don't. We're a much smaller organization. That's why the partnership's so important. But what is it you're doing? Because they normally deal with middle school and high school students mm-hmm. as far as education goes. This Birth to 3 is something that there aren't a whole lot of experts in the education departments at the public media stations. So having this partnership bridges that gap and allows us to talk about, okay, so we were focusing on these children. Now how do we focus on the ones that are going to be those children soon? It's through expertise and partnerships like we have with First Things First Porter County.
It's been really exciting to see, and I think this platform has been a really powerful one for all of us. And I know your team here, I often say Tony should get his PhD now because he's earned it in understanding the content and being able to understand.
Dr. Santucci, paging Dr. Santucci.
We're going to get in the whole regalia and everything. It's been really amazing.
Well, it helps us out with other foundations as well. The Legacy Foundation has helped out with the Building Blocks. Porter County Community Foundations helped out. All the foundations see the importance, community foundations, the importance of what we're doing mm-hmm. and how we're reaching the children of the people that come to them for help. There's co-action. There's all sorts of groups throughout our region that are helping children, helping families, and Building Blocks shines the light on what people are doing.
That's definitely our hope.
Yes.
Chuck, I have to ask, as I've asked everybody else, the first 1,000 days are so critical, and really what we've heard from Dr. Nagel, Professor Heckman, other experts in the field, you just need one person who's madly, crazy, irrationally in love with you. You probably don't remember that time, but if you look back and think about where you've landed now, who was that person for you?
It was Miss Agone. Miss Agone in Clef Elementary School in Rome, New York. I think I was 8 years old, and she started each class day letting us know how we're all different, but we're all important. Miss Agone was and she was an Italian teacher in upstate New York talking to the kids over here. But she was great in building us up and bringing us together. In high school, it was Mr. Ed Jude, and he was my English teacher senior year that made sure we had fun too. Mm-hmm. And he was out for everyone's best interest, and no one kid in his class was better than any other. So it really helped us come together. That's the thing that I really appreciated in my teachers, was to not only teach us, but bring us together as individuals and have us work together. And that was really important to my upbringing.
And that's come through in your work. The relationships are really at the foundation of everything that you do. Relationships with your team here, but with the partners across the community and with your other GMs. I think that's what shines through.
Most definitely.
As we wrap up today, is there any message of hope that you want to give our communities about the future of birth to 3 in Northwest Indiana?
I think there's just been so much talk about early relational health and early childhood development that people are understanding how important this is. Not only that, but there's so many more resources for parents just at the tip of your fingers on the computer. There's so much more access. I think children are much more smarter than we were when we were young. I see them holding their parent. I had a friend whose son was 2 years old calling me on his dad's cell phone and saying, "Hey, Chuck, what are you doing?" And I thought, how did you get a phone and call me? So there's so much more good and bad. There's good and bad influences and content and being really hitting our children. Mm-hmm. So it's good to have all this information from Building Blocks so people can understand what the good stimulus is, how important it is, and how it's cheap. We had someone, Mark Chamberlain, always talked about how reading books was free and how that was something that every child could get access to and can help them grow, is reading. So once again, the socioeconomic issues are there for access, but there's a lot of free things out there to help you grow and help you learn. So just all the communities that understand how important this time in a child's life is so important to spread that word.
And that parents aren't alone.
Yes. As much access as we have, it's really easy to feel alone.
It is.
Yeah.
Thank you and your team for all the work that you do. It's been such a joy and such a learning journey for all of us. And let's keep talking about Building Blocks.
And thank you, Mary Jane, for this partnership and bringing everything that you do to the table. Thank you.
Legacy Foundation is Lake County's community foundation. For over 30 years, we've partnered with donors and nonprofits, focusing on youth development, the arts, the environment, health, literacy, and other causes that matter to you. We're committed to Lake County forever. First Things First Porter County is dedicated to supporting families, healthy beginnings, and quality early learning, ensuring every Porter County baby is born prepared for a strong start in life. Learn more at firstthingspc.org.
I have a very strong connection to other students. Everyone makes an effort to help each other. I'll remember the feeling of being here, the feeling that I was a part of a family.
Additional support for Building Blocks is provided generously by Tom Sorlis and Sue Eleuterio, as well as Porter County Community Foundation, serving Porter County since 1996.
Building Blocks, the podcast, is a co-production of Lakeshore Public Media and First Things First Porter County. For more information on Building Blocks, including this podcast, as well as the television show, visit lakeshorepublicmedia.org/buildingblocks.